1 2, check 1 2.
I was brought to the surface for a purpose. With so much value in a life, it can't be worthless. I'm at service, the competition's nervous. I'm still shining even after all the splurges. I represent a time that's gone, I'm all alone, but still I walk the path I was shown. I don't conform to the norm, they doing coke and porn. I got a bigger purpose, that's why I was born. I stay structured, keep my focus so I won't rupture. If you standing next to me, you know I trust ya. Spit so many words, I got the cotton mouth, drying like I'm in a drought. Can I get some liquids to refresh my mouth? I'm still going, energized cause I'm flowing. Triple stage darkness cause them not knowing. Blind, deaf and dumb, we still get the same outcome. We was born kings, like king we shall overcome. I'm a special vessel, but I still have to wrestle with the flesh, it's a test. Will I make a mess? I'm making moves like chess. Protection at my nest. Fuck with my queen, you getting checked. Shine like the sun, they gon' see me. Blinded by my UV. It's a spiritual thing, so now you see.
Check 1 2, check 1 2. Motivated by life, motivated by love.
So tonight I'm Jay, and we have with us
Captain Keith.
What's good, my brother?
Not much, man, not much.
Hey, man, so I'm excited about our guest tonight. I know you first let me hear some of his music back in about a year or so ago, and man, so impressed by what I heard. We had to do a dedicated episode just breaking down one of his albums, which was really dope.
Yeah, it was real cool.
Yeah, so I think it's tight that after kind of doing that to actually have this person and to actually conversate with and get some insight, it's just like a perfect part 2.
Yeah, so guest artist S.U.N, which stands for Scientific Universal Non-Commercial. I've known S.U.N for about 2 decades, maybe longer. So wow. It's been a minute. Yeah, and we're both from Michigan. He's from Ypsilanti, so which is still Metro Detroit, but yeah, Ypsi. Yeah, he's Ypsi's firstborn son over there. So he's one of my favorite MCs. Just one of the illest, man. Just one of the illest. He real cool, conscious cat. I just, you never know what's going to happen in life and who you're going to meet. I can remember the day I met him at the radio station. I used to DJ out of Oakland University, WXOU. Mm-hmm. I met S.U.N through a mutual friend, Mark Kemp. And I told Mark that I had a radio show, public radio show. And, Mark had this record label, Silent Records. And he just talked about S.U.N because Mark knew that I wasn't really there was gangster rap that I liked, mm-hmm. but I kind of got my fill of it. I knew what was going to happen with it. I knew it was going to get gratuitous and repetitious. And I told him that, I needed to have some MCs that had something to say, mm-hmm. something I could gravitate to. So he's like, I got an artist named S.U.N. I'm like, well, bring him through. So, I love meeting new people. So when I met S.U.N and he came through, it was a great day. It was a great radio broadcast. Mm-hmm. And I just had no idea that would spark a friendship that would last, that would span over 20 years. Wow. So it's just a blessing when you cross people's paths. You just never know how they're going to influence you in your life until they do, what I mean? So, and yeah, I've been following him, been a fan. We've been cool ever since. Yeah. So yeah, that's my story with S.U.N and how we met. And he was always he's always been ahead of the curve too. People need to understand the Roots weren't the first rap band. They were just the ones that survived. But, S.U.N was the first cat I saw, first MC, out of the Detroit scene who would perform with a live band. And it was great. So, you never knew what you were going to get when you went to a S.U.N show, but you knew he was going to turn out and you were going to have a good time. Right. So all those things just stayed with me. So
all right.
He is.
That's dope. And that's a hell of a intro to a hell of a MC. So let's introduce S.U.N to the show. How you doing, man?
What's up, bros? That was nice.
Oh, no problem, man. No problem. Hey, It's good to see you, man. It's been a minute. Yeah, it's been a minute since we did something like this. So a long time. So there's been quite a few albums after that. So
yeah.
like I said, I'm familiar with a lot of your work. So it's basically stuff that I could ask you, but since you are artists and definitely a strong lyricist, I think that you could tell a lot about a person by the words they say. So I would like to ask you is like, with a lot of your music, what I'm noticing, it really contains things like spirituality, truth telling, and it's kind of revolutionary as well. And so with that, how much would you say that your life is reflected in the rhymes that you say?
Oh, that's all day. I can say that my music is what like people should subscribe to. You know what I'm saying? We all want to, I can't sit here and say that I live every lyric, like
right.
the higher lyric, but that's definitely what I subscribe to. It's like I can only speak that way because that's what I'm saying, the way I live. That's why I look at, other rappers who, well, in this new generation where they try to be something they not. That's just the part I don't get, Yeah. When you go back, you probably did have cats who was real gangsters and, they just happened to rap.
Right.
But these kids now, they got it all mixed up.
Yeah, man, they do.
Yeah. And I consider what you kind of say too is aspirational as well. Cause sometimes you don't be there, but what you want to go for. And you do have to put it out there.
Yeah, exactly. You got to put it in the universe, to subscribe, to walk towards it,
Mm-hmm.
like a blessing, you can only get that blessing if you're going in that direction.
Right. That's right. That's the truth. That's the truth.
Yeah, for all of us.
Right.
Most definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. And that also kind of ties into your usage of the word manifesting. You use manifest and manifesting quite often.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's that word, because that's like a garden, and that's the earth.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Your mind state is one and the same, when you're dealing with a substance that's dark, and thoughts is like seeds. So thoughts is planted in the seeds of the mind, you know what I'm saying? Just like the seeds of the earth, which come to fruition. And
right.
Depending on how you nurturing that thought that you planted in your mind through the different practices, then they manifest and come to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like the nurturing the water and you tilling it, getting the weeds out, making the room for that whatever to sprout. It's the same way in thought, If you want something to manifest, you have to nurture it and for it to manifest.
Right.
And that could be, years down the line, days, weeks, hours, it just all on the condition of the ripeness of that seed and that thought.
Yeah. Yeah. That's powerful and it's very true.
I want to talk about the new album you have out. It's called For You Make Radiant Room. First off, how did you come up with that title? That
title, Radiant Room. When I was with one of my partners hanging out maybe 20 years back, his grandmother, she a spiritual lady. She was into that Christian Science. And she just had the saying, for you, make radiant room. And, basically I equated it to, I always use the example, like if you go into the store, the mall or something like that, and you looking for that park all the way on your way to the store, you saying, for you make radiant room, for you make radiant room. When you pulling in, somebody pulling out. It ain't no driving around the mall half hour looking for a park, because for you make radiant room. So, I said, dang, with that thought in mind, I said, why not name the album that? But you make radiant room, because it make things move. It just have to be at, the right time and space for that to manifest.
Okay.
That's where the concept came from, for you make radiant room.
Real cool. Because, the album cover is amazing. It's this real cool picture. It's like it's almost like maybe a TV tube, and it says, for you make radiant room, and there's like maybe like a child's hand on the screen, and it's like it's just getting ready to go into space, getting ready to go to another realm or next level. I mean, that's what I get when I look at it.
Well, yeah, with art, it's always up to the viewer, you know what I'm saying, or the listener. You take it where you want to take it.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? But I always have some type of some space theme, and just about all the albums dealing with that scientific universal.
Yes, definitely.
That's
Yeah.
dope.
Yeah, it's real cool.
And so touching on that, like your most recent album, I also noticed like with some of your past work, when it comes to your sound, like it kind of changes. Like a lot of times you have that traditional boom bap kind of sound, but then some songs you have a little bit more jazzy. And like, you know, like this one has some funk in it, some of those different kind of bass lines and stuff like that. So I see you kind of switch it up, and you're always on point with it. You always got a nice flow. You always got strong metaphors and stuff like that. So when you change those sounds and play around with having different sounds kind of backing you, how does that influence your flow? Or you kind of go from the other way of I have my flows and I find music that match it, or do you just kind of hear the music and just kind of flow off that?
That never been my concept to like because I think when you write before the beat, it's you can lose something, you know what I'm saying? The beat always for me have to be the driving force, because that's to me, that's the fine line of difference. Even though hip hop on some level is poetry, that's the true defining line between poetry and hip hop, because the beat should be the driver, and because the beat is painting the picture. But if you write before that beat, then that's just poetry. And maybe if you saying that poetry over the beat, you can enhance it and, you know, put some different inflection in it. But to me, you won't get that true meaning out of it if you don't let the beat drive the lyrics. Because, you know, when you're dealing with hip hop, like the type of beats I deal with, lyrics is driven by each of those sounds, you know what I'm saying, in there, from the hook, you know, to just some of the lyrics, to the drops that some of the beats have. Right. You know, those fine definitions drive a lot of the lyrics.
Yeah, you definitely be in the pocket, man, for sure. So you definitely be riding those beats. And then I think it's also tight too that you kind of incorporate, which is a lost art, but I still love it. Is like the mixing and scratching. I love that because it plays into what you're saying and backing you up in a way, and you kind of like, you know, jumping off of the, you know, the inserts and stuff, which is, like I said, I don't know why a lot of MCs still don't do that, but like I said, it's a lost art that really takes your music to another level.
I'm kind of glad you mentioned that, because you did. When I hear people, you know, try to define my music in particular, or just define that era of music, you know, they always use that word old school. And it's like, on some level, you know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna say it's offensive or insulting, you know what I'm saying? Because I guess you have to deal with genres. But like, just like when you listen to, I don't know, any other genre, they just don't define it as old school, you know what I'm saying? It's either classic, right? It's like hip hop. You are not allowed to refine yourself in the culture. You know, it's like you supposed to stop at 25 or 19. You know, I'm like, you time out. You know what I'm saying? When you was dumb. You know what I'm saying? When you're dealing with a conscious music, like KRS is only just getting better. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're dealing with real art, you know what I'm saying, real music, it's only getting better through time, because you growing as a human, as a person. So if you still had the time and skills to express that in that form, you only getting better.
Yeah, I've been noticing that with MCs as of late, and it's kind of funny because once somebody kind of connects to you, it's like a relationship. So you always kind of go back and see what people are doing. So people like KRS-One, people like Grand Poobah and folks like that, they still on it. They still have more to say. They're still relevant. And it's funny about the word old school. I use it as a thing of praise in a way. I know some people, maybe younger folks, might use it as a thing to kind of, you know, downplay or act like, it's no longer relevant. But when I say old school, I mean that's when things were of substance. Old school means to me is that when somebody used to care and had morals and was trying to teach you something, not necessarily preach to you, but teach you something. So when I hear old school, and I'm sure folks my age, when they say old school, they probably mean it the way I mean it, with, a thing of respect and a thing of morals and like I said, and content, and something that would feed you. That's what old school hip hop did. This new stuff is fast food. Now I'm not knocking all of it, but it's almost kind of like if I didn't grow up with it, it's hard for me to accept it. Right. Not knocking it, but like I said, old school.
I'm knocking it.
Right.
I'm knocking it.
I hear you, bro. I hear you.
But when I say old school, that's equivalent to me saying soul food. Something that everybody may not get, but people who know it know what it means and what it does for them. So
and there it is. I was going to say too that, so even if we go back to rock and roll, and like you said, they had what was called classic rock and alternative rock, but a funny thing happened along the way, so Chuck Berry, Little Richard, all that all of a sudden became oldies. So, so that's a term that's even worse than old school. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So wait a minute. So how was that foundational music which to me is classic? To me, oldies is an offensive term. So, right. Yeah. So, that goes in sync with what you're saying in regards to old school. But I like what Jay said, because it is soul food.
Oh, yeah. You put it in the context for sure.
Yeah, definitely. But I also say, too, though, one thing that we still have for hip hop is that golden age. Yeah. So, and when you say golden age, I mean, for me, that's a positive connotation,
And then we got that word, you know what I'm saying? The word hip hop.
Yes.
I would never give Drake a hip hop label or none of these new rappers. They rappers. Y'all rap. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Hip hop is a form of consciousness. You know what I'm saying? Hip hop have elements to it. You know what I'm saying? And they don't really meet none of those elements. They just rap for the entertainment purposes.
Mm. Which is fine when you put it in its place, but just as long as people understand that doesn't encompass all of the genre, that there's a difference between hip hop and rap, like you just said. So, yeah. I feel you on that, definitely.
So that leads me to another question then. So how do you find your place in that? Because like when listening to your lyrics and like I say, your metaphors and all that kind of stuff, like I say, you remind me like Rakim and those folks, and I think even though they're respecting stuff, I know it's like a hard journey for them in a way too. And it's a lot of times because of what the record labels are pushing or the radios is pushing, because they know it's food and they don't want, the folks to be, nourished from it. And so they have a harder, it's interesting, especially when it comes to art. It's not necessarily about how good you are. It's almost about what people can get away with using what you're doing. Right. And so if they could use it to distract, or they could use it to keep somebody busy instead of actually doing what it's supposed to, because art is really, it's a form of communication. It's a form of enlightenment. It's a form of connection. Mm-hmm. And so how do you deal with it? Or what keeps you going when you know that, it's not necessarily about talent when it comes to the business of it? Now, when you do stuff, you do it for you, you give what's inside of you to give. And from what I heard of yours, it sounds pretty much uncompromised. So how do you navigate through the world that has a filter to kind of block, trying to block what's real and just trying to block what's feeding? How do you navigate that, and what keeps you pushing forward with what is the right thing to do and the right thing to say and right way to express yourself?
It's a few things. One that stand out is I listen to NPR. You know what I'm saying? We're not as active as I used to, but I was listening to NPR maybe about 10 or 15 years ago, and they was interviewing like one of these chicks, you know what I'm saying, from like the I want to say the early 60s, 50s, soul singer, out cold band. I mean, that shit was so out cold, but ain't nobody heard of her, you know what I'm saying? She damn near 75, 80 years old, just getting her respect due. You know what I'm saying? But she got a whole body of work that's so funky, soulful, beautiful. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just make the music and the universe is going to decide a lot of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, they know the timing when, because I always say this ain't in vain. You know what I'm saying? You ain't doing all of this music and we ain't taking you this deep down in here for nothing. And when I always had those thoughts jumbling in my head, I never think about present success, what could have been in the past. Right. You know what I'm saying? I just think about what's down the road, what's headed.
Yeah, that's smart. And it's funny because I know who you're talking about. I can't think of her name. And because of that NPR interview, I ended up buying her music because she had an album that was coming out, but she had a history of all this other music. And I remember the cover because she's on the cover. It's kind of gray color tone and had blue writing. And I can't think of her name, but I remember that interview.
And the sound was funky, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, y'all let me know because I want to check it out. So
I will, because I got her album. So it's just funny you said that. It just made it click in me. I'm like, I remember.
And I know, you know what I'm saying. It's a ton of us out there like that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Just so many gems out there, just waiting for somebody to unlift that dark cover off and just let it shine.
Right.
Definitely. Well, you know, and I always said to myself back in the day when I saw the floodgates open up for everybody wanting to be a gangster, everybody wanting to be hard, you know, and people misinterpreting what a hardcore really means. Because hardcore could also go back to like the punk rock movement, talking about being socially and politically active, you know, criticizing the government, criticizing the queen or the president. To me, that was hardcore, what Public Enemy was doing, what KRS-One was doing.
Just go back to that Shining Underground album, Thug.
There you go. True Heart Underground. Yeah.
I was going to mention that.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. So, but it was interesting to me because I said to myself, well, this is all going to be a flash in the pan. Because you know real MCs from those who are not. Because real MCs are consistent. They always keep that message going. And when it's all over, when the rocks and dust and dirt is all cleared, they'll still be the ones standing. Mm-hmm. See, you know, and I feel that
long game.
Exactly, and you're one of those MCs, you know. So, you know, you've been consistent. I mean, it wasn't lost on me that last year, in 2020, Paris made a new album, you made a new album, KRS-One made a new album, Public Enemy made a new album. That wasn't lost on me. You know what I'm saying? That all these years later. And everything was on point. Everything was right on time. It was consistent and it was relevant. But where's everybody else at? you know,
maybe
gone.
Hey, one day in the distant future, somebody might be able to sit all of that down in front of them and say, "Damn, listen at the revolutionaries that was there before me."
Exactly.
And not just in pictures, but in word and in beats. You know what I'm saying? Timing and rhythm.
Right.
Yes, exactly. And I feel like whenever, you know, an MC makes a great record or any musical artist makes a great record, especially like the ones that you've been making, I feel like those type of records will be studied in the future because it represents a time and place. I mean, even when I look on when you look at your new CD, I look on the back of it and I see footage, you know, images of Black Lives Matter. And when you open up the inside, you know, and you got the mask on and Black Lives Matter and all the different, you know, the collage, the montage of the different things that were happening last year, you know, that's a moment in time that, you know, that's permanent.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I appreciate that.
We time stamped it.
Yeah, you really did. So I think that's cool. I think that's real cool.
What are your inspirations for your music? Because I know it's very interesting. Usually those that are what would be considered, I guess, quote unquote, conscious or whatnot, or who's saying something. It'd be a lot of times, like even say Ice Cube. He started off with more like hardcore gangster rap, and then he moved into more political stuff, and then he did some little bit of party stuff, and then he went back to whatever. And usually people that are prolific like yourself, usually they seem like they kind of switch up or try to reinvent themselves, right? Mm-hmm. But from the albums I heard from you, and Keith was telling me you have like 9 albums total. How did you stay consistent? Were you still talking about what you're talking about, right? You sticking to, you know, the stuff that you're into, what you're trying to say, you know, you're still being you, but you're finding ways to push it out further, you know, because sometimes people, you know, the well runs dry and it's kind of like, what else can I say about this? What if, you know, what direction do I go? And then they'll just turn into whatever boat is going that way. And it may not be the right kind, but they'll just ride on it because it's moving. How did you find a way to extend and keep it you, keep it on, on brand for yourself, but have enough in you to make it last for 9 albums and you still doing you?
When I think about the music that brought me to where I'm at, and when I say this, I'm not saying I'm nowhere on these artists' level, but these is the artists that I definitely look to far as an inspiration and in just in a longevity sense.
Okay.
And the first would be George Clinton, and the next would be Prince. You know what I'm saying? When I used to just sit and look at a George Clinton album, you could just look at his album and listen to the music like all day. And then like before I start writing my music, I used to listen to every Prince song, starting with like the Soft and Wet album to the Dirty Mind album. And I used to write down the lyrics to each one of his songs so I would know every song by heart.
Wow.
And that just got me in the mode of knowing how to write, because I used to write down all his lyrics, so I just know him by heart. I was just that much of a fan of his music. Mm-hmm. So when I start, I say that as in dating my evolution, because it started with George Clinton and then it went into Prince, and then all of a sudden this rap era came in with LL and Run DMC, and right. I think just the simplicity of Run DMC with the beat, the one, everything was simple. It wasn't really nothing deep. That made you wanna, I can try this myself. And by you just having that basic underlying curiosity or desire to rap, now I can come into my own, like, who am I? You know what I'm saying? And as I start growing, the military and all of these different life experiences, you know what I'm saying? And then you got the evolution of music changing. So now you got KRS coming in, and Nas and the Large Professor and Talib and Mos Def. And I'm hearing this, and then I'm separating myself, refining myself, kind of going through all of that.
Wow. Yeah, man.
Speaking of all that, son, can you tell me your first memory of hip hop?
That would have to be, we used to have, we had black festivals in Ypsi, and we had Pee Wee Herman come up, and then he performed.
Joeski Love?
Yeah, Joeski Love. Yeah, and
okay.
It was just wild to see him, you know what I'm saying, doing this little thing, you know what I'm saying? And that didn't motivate me to rap or nothing, but you just asked me for like,
your first memory.
Memorable moment.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm glad you said that. So my next question would be, when was the defining moment when you knew that you wanted to be an MC, that you were going to be an MC?
When I was in the military. I was stationed out in Washington, D.C. I didn't have no access to no type of beats. So, I was just kind of like taking, like Tribe was big at the time. So like when they was rapping, I was trying to rap right with them.
Okay.
So, but that ain't really defining me. It's just making me mimic kind of them. But at the same time, it was helping me really get into it. Okay. So I think in that era, with that early Guru, Tribe Called Quest, Leaders of the New School, I knew like right then I wanted to do this, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And by me being in DC at that time, I was just so East Coast until I could finally come back to Michigan. And I was listening to the Detroit, which was kind of a turnoff to me, you know what I'm saying? Because they was so into that gangster, kill, shoot, somebody dying. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. I know. Yeah, bro. Austin Dre and Hardcore Committee and yeah, man. And Detroit's Most Wanted, S.U.N. Yeah, bro.
Yeah. None of that was a turn on to me, but I kind of missed that era because it kind of helped me stand out a little bit because it wasn't a lot of consciousness. But the metro area, I was making enough noise where it was, feeling, in that area, you know what I'm saying? Being able to perform at St. Andrews and, shit like that helped.
Oh, yeah.
When I think of your songs and your rhymes, what really stand out to me is always your strong metaphors. So how important are metaphors to you and how you use them?
For just the genre of hip hop, I think metaphors is important when you think about Black Thought, Talib, you know what I'm saying? Some of the, you just can't touch Black Thought metaphors no matter how hard you try, you know what I'm saying? So I know that's just kind of a part of it, but I always say, I don't believe that I'm consciously in the moment writing any of that music. I really believe I'm just remembering it. Wow. Because when I think about some of what I'm saying and how deep it can get, I'm like, nah, this ain't me. I'm just remembering it. You know what I'm saying? So I have to give a lot of credit to me tapping into that universal source and just kind of guiding where everything is at now. That's why I know we dealing with timing, because if we was dealing with something that was artificial, it probably would have been out here and got lost all up in the mix. You know what I'm saying? Right. But I think the universe is waiting for a defining moment. So if it's ever to be out there, it's gonna be heard, because it's gonna be a defining moment for it.
I believe
it ain't gonna be about popularity or most likes or listens. You know what I'm saying? Because that ain't what I'm all about. Right. It's really gonna be about, you know what I'm saying, waking people up. And if it could be just one person, sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah. And also when you're dealing with real food, you actually have to chew it.
Exactly. And digest it.
Right. That's dope.
Hey, this is Jay, and I hope you're enjoying the conversation so far. I just want to let you know that this conversation is part of a larger conversation that continues on the next episode. Thanks for listening.